students, we are expecting more students in school. That is one, which is very key because we are increasing access to ensure that there are no students who qualify to go to senior high school but do not get to go because they cannot afford it. So that is one. Number two, we are going to ensure that we employ more teachers. We are looking at about 8,800 teachers, which we understand is going to be from the NAPCO stock, Teach Ghana. Now, if you look at the senior high school system, we have approximately 40,000 students. About 5,000 are from the private sector, about 35,000 are from the public sector. Now, a double track, you need to add on to the teaching staff so that at every point you have enough teachers to take care of the various tracks, and teachers can also take time off in between tracks to rest. So we are adding on to the teachers, and from the explanation we got, we don't need to provide the 1.3 billion Ghana cedis at the moment. We can afford 300 million Ghana cedis, which they have clearance for, to employ more teachers, to provide what is needed to let the double track run. So I think those are the three key highlights. More students getting access to education, new teachers being employed, and the cost of 1.3, which we would need to use to provide infrastructure and all, will not have to come out now. We need to stagger that particular process of adding infrastructure to accommodate more students.
Okay, thank you very much, Kujo Akoto-Boateng, for bringing us up to speed with the press conference the Minister for Education organized today. Well, so today at the press conference, the Minister for Education said that the government would have to spend 1 billion Ghana cedis on the free senior high school policy without the double track system. Now, the new calendar, the minister said, will start in September this year, and it will have high students attending school at different times of the year. Now, the Minister for Education, like I said earlier, spoke about these things at a press conference he organized today. But to throw more perspective on this issue, I've been joined in the studio by a seasoned educationist, Anis Haver. Anis, thanks for agreeing to speak to us on Citi Newsroom.
My pleasure.
So government wants to roll out this new policy, the double track system, in September this year. There have been several concerns that a lot of consultation was not done. That's why we're having this back and forth. Do you think government did enough consultation?
Well, you know, let's look at education this way. Education is never static; it's dynamic. You want to look at the numbers that are coming in, and personally, I'm pleased that we are making allowances to make sure that everybody has access to education all the way to the senior high school level. This is something that should have been done a long time, you know, to be honest with you. Because the work that I do in this country, there are some people who can never afford to go to secondary school. And, you know, and that will always be a problem. But what we have to do now is begin to look at how we can be of benefit to the greatest number of people. Now, of course, anytime there's something new, the apprehensions, and you know, I can understand some of the apprehensions, but there are ways to resolve this. You know, again, you know, the issue now is money. You know, so we have to begin to look at how we can bring in money to support this. And there are two recommendations that I will make. I mean, and again, I'm familiar with the system. You know, I taught in the U.S. for a while, and they call it the year-round school. And I was, you know, we had the semester, we had the spring semester, and we had the fall semester. So this is not new to me. But let's look at how these things are funded. In the community that you live, you pay property tax. And when the itemized payment comes to you, there's a part of it that goes straight to education. There's a part of it that goes to police department. There's a part of it that goes to the library. And there's a part of it that goes to road construction. But the point is this, the money is used for that purpose. When my own children were in school, they didn't have to pay anything, but we had to pay through the tax system. So this is how we want to begin to look at it. But then having said that, there's another way to also look at this. Look at the PTAs. You know, parents whose children are going to benefit from the senior high school will save about 1,000 cedis a term, I think, and also 1,500 cedis for boarders. So what do we do now? These are the people who have to be drawn in. Then look, there's no such thing as a free lunch. You know, the government wants to make sure, I mean, the SDGs, make sure that everyone has access to education. But what is it that the parents themselves are going to do to complement the government's efforts? So, but there's a national effort with the PTA to be able to, I mean, this is a national body that's autonomous, but I think this is the time now they have to come and play a part. And what I mean is this: every district has to be now so organized that they have to pay attention to the schools in the area and look at how the parents can support it. You know, we have a tendency to believe that government can do everything for us, but in practice, that doesn't happen. So what is it that parents who are now not paying so much, what is it that they're going to do to support the government? But the point is this: the education in Ghana has to be a national effort. It's not a one-man job. But then the thing about politics is this. And, you know, I was 10 years old when Ghana became independent. I've seen governments come and I've seen governments go. I've seen too many of them. But the issue is this: one government doesn't want the other government to succeed, because that would not be an entree for them to get in. Now, when they get into the position, the same thing happens. But this is a national matter. The children in the senior high schools, the children in the junior high schools and elementary schools don't care which party is in power. So what we have to do now is be able to focus on the Ghanaian child and ask ourselves, what is the best that we can produce? What is the best that we can do to produce a crop of young people who are confident, who are knowledgeable, who are literate in the real sense of the word? So these are the challenges that we have to face. But the time has come now where we want to make sure that every kid in this country, up to the age of 18, is sufficiently educated so they can be of use to themselves, to the community, and to the country.
So that brings me to this. You speak to some parents, and I have spoken to quite a number of them. So some say, I can pay for my child's free senior high school policy. Why don't you let me do that? I don't need this free SHS policy. Why can't government look at that as well? Should that be something government should be looking at?
Okay, now that is the dicey issue. But what I'll tell that parent is this: go to a school where your children are and give them that money. You know, I mean, there are ways to do it. We don't want excuses. It's very easy for people to say that. But then the proof of the pudding is in the eating. That is what I'm saying, that such a parent should now join the PTA. And, you know, and then there are parents who can do more than even pay for a child or two children. So these are the challenges now. But what I'm saying is this: we cannot be aloof, especially the kind of parents that we're talking about. I mean, it's good to hear that, but we cannot be aloof. Go to the school sites where your children are and begin to look at the inputs that you and like-minded people can do to help. This is what I said: education is not a one-man show. Everybody needs to be concerned. Parents need to be concerned. The students themselves need to be concerned. The teachers, the districts, and everything else. But now there's a certain momentum. And I'm pleased with that. That education is so critical, not just for Ghana. Any other country is going through the same thing. But then parents now have to go to the school sites and look at the equipment that is needed. Look at the tables that are needed. Look at the facilities that are needed. And they have to be part of it. And I'm saying this because we do a similar thing from Panswin School. And then also the alumni also have to be able to partake. You know, the issue is this: we all have to be seen to be making sure that this business works. At least not for us, but for the children.
Is a double intake system sustainable in your perspective?
It can be. Look, any system is as good as the people who run it. You know, we can have a perfect system. If it's not run by perfect people, it will not work. On the other hand, if you have a system that is focused, but this is quite clear. For me, it's nothing new, because like I told you, I've been involved in such a situation before. But again, we have to make sure it works. And this is what I mean. Teacher absenteeism, that has to be addressed. The ghost names on the payrolls, those things have to be addressed. And then school management. And this is what I mean. Again, in this culture, you have a teacher who is taught for about 10, 20 years of mathematics, and they are so good they become heads of schools. It doesn't work like that. You are either credentialed to teach and teach well, or you are credentialed to manage a school. This is the time that we need some real managers at the school sites, especially even developing landscape policies, so that there are toilets that work, so that the taps run, so that there are no bed bugs in the beds. You know, these are the challenges that have to be. We have to begin to look at people's responsibilities as educators so that these things don't happen. You know, everybody has a role to play.
Thank you very much. And like you said, everybody has a role to play. Thank you so much for speaking to us on Citi Newsroom. You're watching the Citi Newsroom on Citi TV. My name is Paola Kanyo-Foy. Don't go anywhere. We are back with more stories.
Spice up your mornings with culturally enriched conversations, social interviews, and policy-oriented discussions that will keep you updated on the progress of the nation.
Because we're giving only those in their third trimester. So in the next 3 months, those in their second would be ready to receive the kits. And we're taking data at registration, which is before they take the kits, at delivery and post-delivery, so that we can analyze and we'll see the numbers. So from the numbers and the data that we're collecting, we would know what has worked, what hasn't worked, you know.
Join the Breakfast Daily team Monday through Fridays from 7:30 a.m. to 10. Let your voice be heard with the hashtag Breakfast Daily. Join us for breakfast daily, only on Citi TV.
For regular news checks as they unfold, 2020 news all day, all the time. Politics, sports, entertainment, business, and more. 2020 news. We bring you the world in 20 minutes.
And that's all the news in 20 minutes. Thanks for staying with us. You're still watching Citi Newsroom live on Citi TV. Ghana's migration from analog to digital television transmission continues to remain a dream. The migration, which was originally slated for July 2015, has seen many postponements. The current Minister of Communications, Ursula Owusu-Ekufo, had pushed the deadline to September of 2017, but has now shifted the migration to 2018. The migration is to ensure that broadcasting services are protected from interferences from neighboring countries and for improved services. Many countries around the world have successfully completed the migration. Why has Ghana not been able to complete its movement from the analog platform to digital, and what have the issues been? The Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association, GIBA, has been working with the ministry to see to a successful migration. President of GIBA, Andrew Ninkra, has joined me in the studio for more light on this story. Thank you very much and welcome to Citi Newsroom.
Thank you too.
So tell us about this digital migration and why it is so difficult to move.
Okay, so let me tell you about digital migration. Currently, or let's say till we started digital migration, every broadcasting station, television broadcasting, was on analog. Now what it means is that you could only send one particular signal per studio, or let me say a company, broadcasting company, okay, to your viewers. So that when you have, let's say, broadcasting station A, you want to send a particular signal, it is just one signal that you can send. You needed to have repeater stations to cover a wider area. So for instance, in Ghana, you needed about 48 stations all over the country to cover, and that is per one station. Where you have multiplicity of stations, let's say 14, 20 of them, what it means is that they needed to have that many infrastructure all over the place. Somewhere in 2000, from Europe, they realized that they could do digital, where a lot of stations can come together and send one signal at a time. You could get about 40 channels on one particular TV set.
Okay.
So that is where we started from. Now, Ghana also thought about doing this. Technically, we even shot ahead of the world. 2015 was given for the time. In 2006, the ITU, the International Telecommunication Union, met in Geneva and said every country should try as much as possible by 2015 to go into digital transmission. Okay. But before the ITU met in 2005, in 2006 and signed, 2005, Ghana had started making provision for that.
In 2005?
That is as far back as 2005. Ghana has started making provision for that. And so a team was put together. The National Digital Migration Team was put together. It's a technical implementation team.
Well, who formed the team?
They are made up of members of GABA, the National Media Commission, GBC, the Ghana Institute of Engineers, and some few others, you know, so who came together. And they've been working till about 2010. They've been putting documents together. Contract was signed out. GABA had been working with the ministry. GABA had been working with the technical team to get everything underway. So this is what has been going on over the years. Somewhere in 2016, we started having problems. In fact, just before then, just before then, somewhere around 2014, things started stalling. This is what happens. Somewhere along the line, a contractor is giving. You see, the infrastructure are not new infrastructure that are being put up. There are the old ones that are being used. For instance, the head end where all the signals are supposed to meet is at Kanda. Now, the building is there already, belongs to GBC. Most of the sites which are being used, for instance, we needed 42 sites in Ghana. Most of the sites belong to GBC already. In Kumasi, I know the 3 sites, or 2 sites I know belong to GBC. In Accra, Ajankote, and somewhere, Weja belongs to an individual, and then Tema. You know, so some of the sites were there already. And so they just needed to upgrade and then to add equipment to it to make it functional. This was given to somebody, a particular company, a particular entity. They couldn't raise the money, the funding they needed. So again, the technical committee put their heads together and then they suggest that we could sell off the analog that we are no more going to use. There were more spectrum on the analog, so they had to be auctioned. So this was auctioned, money was raised. Interestingly, the contractor who was giving the work to do also was not able to do it. So
why? Now there's money, so what happened?
Well, the money was not given to the old contractor who was not able to do it because he was supposed to raise funds himself. So now that we have public money, it could not be given. So again, a new person is brought in. Within 1 year, everything was ready. But then again, before you can roll out, you need a policy. You need a document, you need some ideas, understanding as to how you want this to roll out. So these policies had been drawn. Then again, we realized that the management of the infrastructure, the management of the whole process was key to the success of the project that we are undertaking. See, this is where the danger is. If you have an individual who is broadcasting, he has control over what he is doing. But when you are conglomerating everything into one, when you are bringing everything under one roof, there's a danger. If government controls it, government can decide who can broadcast and who cannot broadcast. If a private entity controls it, the private entity definitely then will begin to make money. Making money, making profit becomes the foremost thing the person is taking.
So could that be an option?
So then the option is to bring the two together, which brings in the private-public participation. This is what has been suggested to the ministry that has to be done. Unfortunately, we have departed from this. Now the management is becoming an issue. The management is becoming a problem. Somewhere along the line, the ministry decides that we would have to do expansion work. We would have to add on to it. What question we are asking is, why do you have to add on to it when what you are starting, you haven't started yet? We believe that the sites are ready. As of 2007, one of the problems that was key to the starting was the testing. That is one. And before the testing, electricity, hooking the various centers to the national grid. 22 of them were ready, 20 were not ready. Or otherwise, 20 were ready, 22 were not ready. One of them is correct. So you have to hook them to the national grid. As at February this year, we knew that had started, that the ministry was in talks with the National Electrification Authority in the Northern Region, the Northern Electrification Department in the Northern Region, the Electricity Corporation, the VRE, they were all in talks to get everybody hooked. Now that is where things started stalling. We are not hearing from the ministry. Letters upon letters that we are writing to the ministry, we are not getting response. And this is the issue. Where you have private individuals investing money into this business, and they don't know where they are going, there's a lot of anxiety.
Absolutely.
And that is what we are asking, that somebody should come out there and tell us where we are.
So you don't even know where you are?
We don't know where we are. We know where we are heading, But where we have gotten to, we need to be told.
And from how we have moved, it looks like we are not getting there anytime soon.
We have moved very fast. In fact, we moved ahead of everybody. But what is stalling the whole implementation for the past few years, let's say about 4 or 5 years now, is what we don't seem to understand. And then we realize that there are also some kind of, I don't want to use the word interruption, but, needless, talks going on about, for instance, when you're talking about expansion, when you are bringing in a new player, you've had a particular company who has done most of the installation within a very short time. Why do you have to bring in a new player who is already himself a player?
Do you see this being on government's priority list? The migration?
Definitely is on a priority list. Definitely it is on a priority list. Definitely it must be on the priority list, and it is.
So realistically, when are we looking at migrating finally?
I represent Garbrah, and that is what I am saying, that I am lost. MOC should be able to come out to tell us the date, because you see, again, as you read in your intro, the date has been changed.
Yes.
And we are waiting for the new date. For instance, the analog is supposed to be switched off. For instance, the one who is going out there to do business should know that the analog is off. For instance, the one who is talking about getting clients onto his platform should know what percentage of the country do we cover? What geographic area do we cover? How many viewers do we cover? There are questions. Who is managing the whole platform? Who are the managers? What are the charges? For instance, we were told that 1 year we were going to be on it pre-bono, where we are not paying anything. When is the 1 year starting? When is it ending? If you are still on analog, some parts of the country is not being covered. When you are on analog, what kind of contracts are you signing with owners of the platforms that you are on? Are you going to continue for the next 2 years, or you are just going to stop to tell them that next month we are going digital, so I don't need you?
Well, so if you are lost and you don't know where we are heading to, or what or when we are going to eventually migrate, I don't know where it leaves all of us. So
the unfortunate aspect of it is that since last year, Garbrah has been undertaking a lot of campaign on this DTT. In fact, we did quite a lot on it.
But I haven't sorted things out with the ministry yet.
Unfortunately, the information is not even forthcoming for us to do it free of charge again.
Well, so we will have to end it here, and we'll call you again when you have all the information. Next time when we come to you, we want you to be telling us when we are eventually migrating. Thank you very much, Mr. Anuka, for your time.
Thank you also.
Right, so you're still watching Citi Newsroom live on Citi TV. Moving on, the director of the Marine Police, ACP Seydou Idi, has commended the judiciary for giving the maximum sentence in last Tuesday's stowaway case at the Takoradi port. Speaking to Citi TV's Akweseje Anim after the court ruling, ACP Idi said the sentence would serve as a deterrent to others.
ACP Seydou of the Marine Police highlighted the sentence handed out to the convicts by the Takoradi Magistrate Court.
The non-syndicated group, that is the 6 stowaways who use the canoe and bamboo to board the vessel in the anchorage, 5 of them were sentenced to 5 weeks imprisonment. In addition, they are to pay 600 Ghana cedis as fines. The 6th person among them who is known to the court, in effect, last Tuesday was his 4th time of appearing in court over charges of stowaway. He was sentenced to 2 years imprisonment. Then the syndicated case, the syndicated stowaways, that is to do with the stowaways who use the port, who gain access to the port and entered into container vessels. The main stowaway of the 13 stowaways of 2017, he failed to appear before court. So there's a bench warrant issued for his arrest. And if we are not able to get him, he will be sentenced in absentia. Yeah. The two guys who recruited him and collected monies ranging from 2,500 to 3,000 Ghana cedis. The most highest one was sentence was 4 weeks imprisonment and a fine of 600 Ghana cedis each. The remainder of the facilitators, that is those who work as either machine operators or tally clerks within the port, were each sentenced to 3 weeks imprisonment.
According to him, the maximum sentence is significant in the fight against the stowaway menace.
We are very pleased that for the first time, custodial sentences have been given. For the fines, monetary terms, even if you fine somebody 100,000 Ghana, they can mobilize the resources and pay. You could see that in the case of the syndicated, non-syndicated stowaways, one person was given the maximum sentence prescribed by the law, that 2 years imprisonment.
Reporting for Citi Newsroom, I am Akwesi Eje Enim, Takrade.
Civil society organizations, CSOs, are demanding the investigation and prosecution of all other persons complicit in the botched Ameri Innovation deal. This follows the dismissal of Boakye Jarko as energy minister in what the presidency has described as embarrassing. President Akufo-Addo is reported to have been misled into granting executive approval for the deal to be laid in parliament. The executive director of COPEC, Duncan Amoah, however, believes Boakye Jarko could not have acted alone. We have been joined by the Executive Director of the Institute of Energy Security, Mr. Anamwa Sechi, to delve into these concerns by some CSOs. Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Duncan.
Thank you very much, madam.
Right, so the Energy Minister has been sacked. Yes, I agree that there may be other people complicit because he couldn't have done the work all alone, but he got an executive approval from the president. Why are we not looking at things from that side?
Well, we beg to differ. From 2015, a Ameri deal has been touted as bloated and shrouded with fraud and all that. So there was a promise that government will look at it and ensure that we have value for money. Civil society groups like IES, we are all in support of that. Any initiative, any step taken by government to ensure that we have made gains as a people, we're in support of that. Then it started with the Addison Committee. Unfortunately, their trip to Dubai to meet Ameri was footed by the same Ameri. The cost of flights, their accommodation, and their shopping was footed by Ameri. From that moment, we became suspicious of how things could end. And so we were tracking every path that the deal was going to go through. And when it got to the president, he also gave an executive order. It moved to the Mines and the Energy Committee, including that of Finance, to look at and approve. That's the moment we saw that the figures, as contained in the memos presented by the Minister of Energy, most of the figures were mistakes, frosted. Let's say it's mistake. We can't say it was deliberate. And so they made a claim that we're going to make a savings of about $400 million by giving the Ameri deal to Metallinius, a new company, a company we know is directly connected to Metca, the current operator of the plant. And so when we look at the reasons adduced for this 400 million savings, we realize that no, it is equally flawed. And so when we did interrogate the figures, we realized that we're rather going to make a loss. The new operator, Metallinius, is likely to make a gain of about $800 million over the years, and we're rather going to make that loss. We ask ourselves, why are we going to that deal? Why are we taking that step? The first phase of our Ameri deal, the 5 years, is such that we should be able to pay for the cost of the plant. And so we've done 2.5 years. Another 2.5 years left to finish the 5 years. And at the end of the 5 years, the plant becomes ours. We decide what we do with the plant. And this is not the first time we've had this plant in Ghana. VRO Group were the first black crew in West Africa to operate an aeroderived gas turbine plant. The first one was introduced by President Kofo during that power crisis. And so we realized, no, why would they give it to a third party who has commercial interest when we have people capable enough to run the plants? And so while we're doing all the checks, we realized that no, something has gone amiss, and we flagged it. SF supported, other civil society groups supported. But madam, if we have not done this, where would we have been by today? We're not going to incur financial loss to the states. And today in the on social media, we've seen letters which is attributed to Mary saying that they were not part of the deal. So it means the negotiations. So it means that we were also heading for judgment debts as well.
Mary also later came out to say that they had given power of attorney to a Ghanaian to represent them.
What date was on the letter? The date on the letter suggests that the document had been submitted to the president before they gave the power of attorney to somebody. And even that letter, we suspect it's not a genuine letter. But then it's gone to the president because the date was wrong, all the same. All this issue is ensuing and hearing from the president's own corridor that the president was misled, led to the dismissal of.
Is that not enough?
It's not enough. You see, the minister works with 3 able deputy ministers, one in charge of power, one in charge of petroleum, the other in charge of finance and infrastructure.
Yeah.
They all tie into this deal. Are you saying that it's not for nothing that they were put there? They are supposed to resource the minister. Everybody's supposed to contribute to this. And so we never saw any of them come to say that we disassociate ourselves from the minister's position.
But he is the gatekeeper. Everything rests with the minister.
It shouldn't rest with him alone. That's why each of them has given a definite role. A definite role to perform.
Answerable to the minister.
Answerable to the minister and answerable to Ghanaians as well.
Yes.
And so if we have made a financial loss, incurring financial loss or judgment debt, who will have borne this? High cost of electricity will come back to us. There's the likelihood that we are paying for judgment debt as well. All this at whose expense? It's also expense. None of them spoke against it. Today, we have the minister hanged. And any of them could be made a substantive minister.
That is your issue.
That is our issue as Ghanaians. It's our concern that, look, when things are not made right, everybody has a role to play in making the things right. So we are saying that currently in the energy space, we don't see sanity. Almost every deal or any negotiation we go into with respect to petroleum and power, we seem to get it amiss. And so we're saying that if the president wants to make it right, it must be made right.
Right, okay, so before we go on, we have a report on this whole Ameri deal. Let's go see it.
The president last night relieved the energy minister, Boakye Agyarko, of his cabinet portfolio. According to Director of Communications of the presidency, the president's action is born out of the role the former minister played in the botched Ameri Innovation and Amendment Agreement. But from some indications, Boakye Agyarko is not entirely at peace with the latest twist to the Ameri saga. In a post on Facebook today, Mr. Agyarko indicated that after the dust settles, his side will come out. The current fate of the former energy minister and the circumstances leading to his eventual sacking has brought up many reactions. For Energy Civil Society Group, Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, COPEC, the quest to uncover the rot must not end at the sacking of the energy minister. According to the executive director of COPEC, Duncan Amwa, there should be an investigation and prosecution for all those complicit in the scandal.
It is refreshing, it is heartwarming that the president decided to crack the whip to forestall any such recurrence now and the future. We have heard in certain quarters that Mr. Boakye Agyarko probably didn't act alone. And so we think that the onus would lie on him squarely if he thinks he was equally misled or things were misrepresented to him as a minister. If there were actors who pushed him into this deal, we think that the earlier he explained to all and sundry, the better we will get to the end of this whole saga. Indeed, the industry is one that if you lie today, it will catch up with you the next day. The president has taken a very bold step. We commend him. And we think that if Mr. Agyarko indeed didn't walk alone on this agreement, and there are other persons so connected, the onus would lie on him to come out to say that indeed he had no hand and that things were pushed on him to do.
In a rather interesting turn of events, the communications specialist at the Energy Ministry, Nana Opon-Damwa, has resigned. He was probably the lone voice that strongly defended the botched Ameri Innovation Agreement.
Right, so you've heard the report, and if you've watched it now, the minister says that when the dust settles, we will hear his side of the story. Do you think that he's been sacrificed to cover up issues there?
He's the only person that can speak to this. You see, the energy space is already dusty, and it's not going to settle now. So we rather challenge him to come out as soon as possible. We've heard the report that there were interference in his work. He was pushed to do things. Who knows this? He could have spoken earlier on, not now. But if you think he has more to say, it's the right time to speak, or forever hold his peace.
Mr. Namasechi, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, madam.
Right, so we just spoke to the Executive Director of the Institute of Energy Security, Mr. Anamwa Sechi. You're still watching Citi Newsroom live on Citi TV. We have more news coming up. Don't go away.
It's engaging, detailed, and loaded with factual and incisive analysis. It's The Big Issue, your preferred Saturday morning news and current affairs analysis program on Citi TV. Tune in this and every Saturday at 9 a.m. and hear the newsmakers discuss the top issues for the week.
At that time, Charlotte was complete. I'm not defending Charlotte. I'm talking about the way we behave like hypocrites and ostriches in this country. At that time, she was a perfect person.
It's The Big Issue with Sela Madonu on Citi TV. This and every Saturday at 9 a.m.
Good evening, this is The Point of View. We're live on Citi TV.
Tune in to The Point of View, Mondays and Wednesdays at 9 p.m. as Bernard Avlet takes the news further. He will bring the right guests, ask them the relevant questions, and get you the real insights you need on the big stories for the day.
We need taxes to run the economy. How do you do it sensibly and have the least pernicious effect in terms of cascading through the economy? And I think that is the thinking that is required. It's not a denial that we need taxes, and I think that is a difference in the two administrations.
The Point of View with Bernard Avlet, Monday and Wednesday nights, only on Citi TV.
Hello again, thanks for staying with us. Now, gold dealership company Men's Gold Ghana has refuted claims by the Bank of Ghana that it is taking deposits. The Bank of Ghana earlier this morning issued a release warning the public against depositing their funds with the company, saying Men's Gold does not have the license to undertake such operations.
Well, the central bank further stated that it was working with other regulatory bodies to take the appropriate sanctions against the company, but reacting to this, the corporate communications manager of Men's Gold Ghana, George Quay, tells Citi Newsroom the allegations cannot be true.
It is a very unfortunate statement that was released by the BOG earlier today. And indeed, it is not the first time. And the statement, if they did allude that we're taking deposits from customers that we shouldn't, that is a blatant lie, because we're not taking deposits from customers. Our license, which we have from the Minerals Commission, mandates us to buy and sell gold. And that is what we do. We buy and sell gold. What we offer is we have a gold vault service. So when you buy your gold and you bring it to us, we can keep it in our vault for you, and then we trade it. And then whatever accrues on the gold, the extra value that accrues on the gold, we share that extra value with you. That is not dividends. We've not taken money from anybody. And if there's anybody out there who can attest to a fact that we've taken money from the person should speak up. We are not operating under the remit of the Bank of Ghana. We have a license from the Minerals Commission. We've had several engagements with the Bank of Ghana. They've been to our offices. We've had several meetings. They do understand our business processes. And we would have liked it that they are unsatisfied with any of our presentations or answers or any other things that they've seen themselves. They would come back to us instead of going to the public.
Right, so we're still on this matter, and Mr. Samuel Ochri, a financial risk analyst, has joined us in the studio to throw more light on this story. Thank you very much, Mr. Ochri, for your time. Welcome to Citi Newsroom.
Thank you very much.
What exactly is going on? Because it looks like we've been running around this. Bank of Ghana, this is not the first time, it's not the second time that is warning us. And Men's Gold keep firing back that they are not doing anything wrong. What exactly is going on?
Thank you. The question is a difficult one to answer for a couple of reasons. The very first thing to point to is the fact that the focus of BOG and its object as is given by law, Section 3 of Act 6(1)(2), basically says that the primary objective of the Bank of Ghana is to maintain stability in the general level of prices. The 2 says that the general economic policy of government and to promote economic growth. Now, it speaks among other things, and when you go to Section 4 of the Bank of Ghana Act, it says that the D under which today's notice was issued basically goes and uses an interesting word, which is financial sector. Now, the big question to ask ourselves is that is what Men's Gold doing deposit receiving? To answer that question, I think you come back to the Specialized Depositors Act, which basically says that deposit taken business, it defines it under the Section 4, but when you go to the interpretation under Section 156, it actually says that when you're given or you're taking money, that would be paid with interest or premium. But it goes on and uses 2 interesting words, not referring to one, provision of property or service. And the second one is given of security. Now, the question for determination is actually for the court. And that's why I think that when Men's Gold says that if the regulator has anything, it should go to the court, is because these are questions of law. And these are questions that can only be determined by the law court. Because indeed, it would appear that on the face of it, it would appear that they are taking deposit. They have said that what they are doing is good, but they are buying and selling gold, for which BOG does not have any powers, they claim. I want to, and this is a new directive, this may come as a surprise, and this may come as an interesting. BOG released a capital requirement directive somewhere around May, and then in paragraph 395 and 399 of that directive, there are very interesting clauses which requires that anybody who trades or in gold and foreign currency has a certain capital that is regulated by BOG. But that directive was issued under Section 92(1) of the Specialized Depositors Act. And so if Men's Gold can claim that it is not a specialized deposit and win a case in court, this may not apply. But as it stands now, BOG by this directive may have a stronger argument than Men's Gold may avert its mind to.
But so if they have this, I mean, if they have this strong case, why are they not doing anything about it? Because they've been warned several times and nothing is going on. So What are they talking about?
I think that's a good question we all should be asking ourselves. Indeed, if it's obvious that BOG holds the view that it's taking deposit, we would expect that the regulator would have acted. And so the cautions are important, however, because the general public needs to be put on notice. Because if you look at the directives, they've put some working capital, which is to say that you invest or you give them money at your own risk. And so what it means is that, not like we've seen in the other banks, there would be no surety or there will be no guarantees of your money if anything should happen. And so the regulator has given notice to the public to say...
But is that enough? Why do we want to wait for something to happen if they are doing anything illegal? Why are we waiting? Do they actually fall under the Act 930?
That's a question for determination by the court. I cannot say yes or no, because I think it's a gray area in law, because when you look at what they trade on are derivatives, and so it's not the primary buying and selling of gold. That derivative would apply to have features that fit perfectly into the financial services definition, but in terms of buying and selling gold as it is, may not be. And so that determination as to whether the business itself is one that is deposit taking can only be pronounced on by the court.
So which law is allowing them operate?
Now they claim they have license, which I don't think is disputed by the Minerals Commission, which would seek to say that they buy and sell gold. The questions as to the trading of that would appear to have a certain implications for the financial sector. And as I've said, the Capital Requirement Directive may be instructive under paragraph 395 and 399, which is a new directive that has actually been issued. It would be good that stakeholders pay attention to that directive. That may guide the conversation a bit more. But I think looking at that, it will be difficult not to assume or to guess as a layman that the trade of the gold may be under the remit of the Bank of Ghana.
So as a financial analyst, what would be your advice to the general public?
My advice is that we ask a bit more questions. I cannot stand here and say I know the business of men's gold, because I don't. But I think it's important we ask a bit more questions and ask ourselves, as a people, we've seen banks collapse. I guess the bigger question we should be asking is, are business models sustainable? Which means that we should understand how people make money. I guess the bigger question we all should be finding out is, how does men's gold make money?
And how safe
is it sustainable? These are questions we perhaps would have to interrogate more as the time goes, and perhaps get answers to it.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Otri, for your time.
Thank you.
Right, so you're still watching Citi Newsroom live on Citi TV. We have more news coming up shortly. Do stay.
So more names keep coming up as far as the NDC flag bearership race is concerned. Well, there is a new entrant. A member of the National Democratic Congress, that's Stephen Atubiga, has officially informed the National Executive Committee of the party of his decision to contest as a flag bearer of the party for the 2020 polls.
Now, Stephen Atubiga joins 3 other members of the party, Sylvester Mensah, Eko Spio-Garbrah and Joshua Alabi, informally informing the party of their intentions. Right, and that's all for Citi Newsroom at 8 p.m. For more news, do visit citinewsroom.com.
Sugar yourself every day. And I am Piola Kanyofo. We are back here tomorrow with more stories.
Absolutely. Good evening.
Good evening.
Let's see. Today it was smooth, right?
Communications Minister, Education Minister, as well as Trade and Industry Minister. With eyes on a greater prize, he has indicated his intention to contest the flag bearership of the National Democratic Congress ahead of the election in 2020. Spio-Garbrah is my guest on Face to Face. Welcome to Face, Mr. Spio-Garbrah.
Thank you very much.
Busy day for you, having submitted your letter of intent to the NDC.
That is true. It's been a long time coming, a long time waiting, but it's a good day.
What were the processes that you went through before you decided that, okay, I'm submitting this? We knew you had been considering for a while, but a submission of a letter of intent confirms that you are definitely in the race.
Absolutely. Well, not exactly. First of all, there has to be a formal nomination process, which the party headquarters has not announced yet. The payment of the filing fee, the amount which we still don't know yet. Then the vetting process. You'll be vetted by a panel of senior party people, and it is after that that you become a formal candidate. But for now, at least for the sake of media purposes and for the general public, we are telling Ghanaians that when the time comes for nomination, we also intend to file a nomination papers.
This is the second time you are doing this, is it not?
That is correct. 2006 was the first time.
Different times than different times now. What makes this a particularly important time for you to throw your hat in there, that you want to leave the NDC?
Well, in 2006, the NPP had been in office for about 5 to 6 years. And President, then Professor Atta Mills, had tried to be president 2 times, 2000 and 2004, and had not succeeded. And so there were people who were concerned about whether he could make it a 3rd time. And so there was a view that competition would be good to strengthen his potential anyway. And so I was encouraged to put in my nomination then. Went for the contest. I was still working for an international organization, if you remember.
Yeah.
The Commonwealth Telecom organization in London. And so I didn't really have much time to campaign. I came to launch my campaign on 21st September. The election was in December, barely 2 months. And I still came in second in a field of 4 very, eminent contestants. So now that we've had 12 years since that election, and as we say in our local language, the Akondwanato, or the seat has become empty again, I first have to reflect on what I can offer to the people of Ghana and to the NDC as a party. So for the last maybe almost a year to 14 months, I've been consulting around the country, gone to almost every region, met with the youth, met with our council of elders in terms of individual members, spoken to the founder, spoken to the former president, spoken to other leading party members, and the business community in particular. And there's been a sense that I'm still relevant for Ghana's future and I could make a difference. So I'm here to be a transformational leader, a servant leader, leading by example, avoiding some of the failures of the NPP, because the more the NPP also disappoints Ghanaians, the more our party members and ordinary Ghanaians look forward to better, cleaner, competent, efficient leadership from wherever, including the NDC. And so I'm here to offer all of that as well.
Whilst offering that, you must also admit it is a particularly trying time to try and lead the NDC into an election, considering the results that came in from the 2016 election. This was an incumbent party that lost an election by almost 1 million votes.
Right.
What are you bringing that is different?
The 1 million voters, for what we have learned from some of them, were unhappy with the NDC, but did not want to vote for the NPP either. So they simply abstained. And the reasons why they're not happy with the NPP varied from constituency to constituency, from person to person. In some places, elections had been run and they felt that members of parliament had been imposed upon them. Some of their supporters had then gone to set up themselves as independent candidates. So in fact, in the Volta region, from my understanding, in more than 20 after the 26 constituencies, an NDC parliamentary candidate was being challenged by at least 1, sometimes 2 independent candidates who also were NDC.
So that kind of split votes in some places, but it also suppressed the votes from those who just got a little exasperated with the whole thing and didn't want to go. Then there were those who just felt that the party hadn't taken care of them, or the government of the day hadn't taken care of them. Others who felt that other regions had gotten more than they had. And then there were problems along the coast. But also the issues with NDC and why we lost 2016. I think that's been very well chronicled in the Kwesi report.
That you haven't seen. Have you seen it?
You haven't seen it. I haven't seen it. And most NDC party members have not seen it.
Why? You are a leading member of the party.
Yeah,
somebody at your level should have seen it.
Well, it's a nice thing to say. I think my own view is that there are individuals who feel that if the report came out, it would be detrimental to their own political aspirations, and I found it worthwhile to suppress it. But my view is that portions of the report, I'm not in favor of the entire report being circulated openly to everybody, but I'm in favor of selective presentation of relevant aspects of the report to the appropriate organs of the party. So, for example, if there are 15 pages of the report that deal with what happened in the Volta region, I would want that 15 pages to be given to a Volta region party leadership for them to get greater details of what happened, so they can by themselves propose the corrective measures. If there were 17 pages that deal with the central region or 12 pages that deal with Upper East, then I recommend that similarly the leaders of the party in those regions get it. There may be 8 pages that deal with the challenges with the communications of the party, whether we communicated well or not. There may be 9 pages that deal with fundraising and how money was allocated or not. And my view is that if each of the organs of the party got the relevant pages that dealt with them, and then they were tasked to find remedial measures to prevent those particular problems from taking place, then we would be in a much stronger position to move forward. So when I become the flag bearer of the party, I will find a way to implement my own recommendation so that the party becomes more knowledgeable about itself in order to correct itself. There's no point in somebody who has a certain illness hiding the illness from himself. And people die often because they don't get medical attention when they suppress their own problems and don't tell anybody. So I think in one of our local languages, they talk about the person who sells his illness. Is the person who also gets his cure. So that's my view as far as that report is concerned.
But prior to the election, did you think the NDC had a lot of ills? You are saying, you basically just told us that the NPP didn't win the election. It was the apathy of NDC that lost the election.
Well, the NDC was an incumbent government. And usually incumbent governments lose elections rather than the opposing party taking the power away from them by your own actions and inactions. If there were allegations of corruption that we were tarred with and which we couldn't defend very well, if there were allegations of incompetence against the leadership of the party and the government, which we were accused of and we couldn't defend very well, then of course the NPP did other things beyond simply accusing NDC of one thing or the other. They indulged in a high volume of sloganeering.
Sloganeering, what is that?
Which is taking their policies and creating slogans out of them. So if you say one district, one factory, it's a slogan. If you say one village, one dam, it's a slogan. If you say free SHS, it's a slogan. There may be policies behind them or policies that you intend to implement behind them. But as you can see, they haven't thought through any of those policies. They just deal with the slogans. So now that we've been on the chance to govern, you find they are struggling, one, to develop policies, two, to develop implementation programs against those policies and action plans, and even the mechanism, the institutions, the government agencies that should implement their plans are all in disarray. And so there's a lot of confusion within NDC, MPP rather. Otherwise, you will not hear the finance minister of the government, having looked at the cost of education and the cost of free SHS and even the possible cost of this so-called multi-track system, now coming out openly to say, look, as far as he's concerned, parents should be given a chance to pay their children's school fees.
But he said that was his
and then an
opinion.
information minister, well, but if it's a personal opinion that he chooses to voice out, then having been a cabinet minister on a number of occasions, I can tell you that he's voicing it out of frustration, because he goes into a cabinet meeting, he is the one managing the books of the country, he's pointing out to his colleagues why a particular policy may make sense politically, but may not make sense financially. And his colleagues obviously don't want to listen to it, and are putting into a task of find the money, find the money. So okay, so he goes to raise taxes by charging a luxury tax on cars over 3.0 liters, or people earning more than 10,000 cedis. which was not the case before. So that entire group of people are very unhappy, right? Anybody with a car at 3.0 liters who's going to be paying new levy every year cannot be a happy Ghanaian. Anybody who is earning about 10,000 cedis, who is now going to be paying 35% tax on his salary, will not be a happy Ghanaian. And all those others who are finding a difficulty at the ports, the Kukumpe and Abosokai traders who were all for MPP and have now seen their prices double, triple, or whatever it is, cannot be happy. Every taxi driver who is paid 4 or 5 times, seen fuel increases go up 4 or 5 times in the course of the last 18 months, cannot be a happy Ghanaian. So the number of unhappy Ghanaians is growing by the day. The parents who are sending their children to so-called free SHS schools, who find that even well-known schools, the most prominent schools in Ghana, have 70, 80, 100 students in a classroom. And there are many of our secondary school dormitories where young men and young ladies are lying on the floor. There are secondary schools where young girls cannot get accommodation, 13 to 18-year-old girls. So they've gone to rent very, poor quality hostels around the school compound and are being taken advantage of. There are so many reports from independent, Ghana Education Coalition organizations, from international organizations which are monitoring it. So it's not me presenting a report. Some of your news organizations have also gone around to schools and provided photographs and video tapes of what is going on. I'm surprised that Citi TV or Citi FM will say they are not aware or they haven't seen the photographs.
We'll get to the education conversation in a bit, but you are a renowned communications person and you talk about sloganeering. You sound like an admirer of what the MPP did. Why couldn't the NDC sell this message? You were part of the campaign team, were you not?
I was part of the communications committee of the campaign, but I was not called to one single meeting.
You were not called?
Not called, not invited to any single meeting.
To be called, invited?
How do you go to a meeting if somebody doesn't tell you that meeting is scheduled at 2 o'clock in this location? Okay, you can't attend a meeting by yourself. Somebody has to invite you to a meeting if you're a committee member. So that's how all meetings occur, whether it's a board meeting, a cabinet meeting, a meeting of pastors or any other kind of meeting. Somebody has to invite you. Oh, of course. I was very, very interested. I even stood up once in a meeting of all ministers and deputies and the entire party leadership and pointed out that this was our April of 2016 and the committees had been announced about 6 months earlier and I had not been invited to a meeting. I made it known. I stood up and said it. There were about 200 people in the room. Nobody answered that concern, and to this very day I have still not been invited to any meeting. So those who attended the meetings and whoever took the decisions, they probably can give you a better explanation. But it was quite clear to me that we were selling the history of our achievements, which was an important part of communication. You want to tell people what you've done. We've built schools, we built roads, we built bridges, we built power plants. Fantastic. But we forgot, the communication team, whoever they were, forgot that what people were voting for was not merely or even mainly what you've done already, which people think you must do anyway because you're using taxpayers' money to do it. You didn't use magic. You used their money to do it and maybe some loans. They were more interested in what you will do if you were given back power to continue for 4 years. So what will you do from 2017 to 2021, NDC, which also was in a manifesto as a book, but it wasn't translated effectively into specific communication messages to the people. On the contrary, the MPP were not talking so much about their past in terms of what they did under President Kufuor, for example, but rather what they would do for Ghanaians in the future. If you vote for us, we'll give you free SHS. If you vote for us, we'll give you 1 village, 1 dam. If you vote for us, we'll give you 1 district, 1 factory. Now, the promises were many, more than 200 of them, and these are just the highlights, but they are easy to remember highlights. That's why I call them sloganeering, because you create a slogan around it. I started my professional life in the advertising industry, where sloganeering is very legitimate and naturally is part of the business. And indeed, when people say that, well, when we are going to select a flag bearer, we must select somebody who has been marketed already, somebody who is already well known. Many such people don't understand communications and don't understand marketing. And I say to them, just to give them an example, that in 1997, the NDC had tried to bring about a value-added tax in 1995. And there had been demonstrations. The current president led demonstrations, branded Kumi Prekon, CME Prekon, WME Prekon. People died in the demonstrations. President Rawlings suspended the implementation of the value-added tax. When I became Minister of Communication in 1997, President Rawlings called me and said, look, you know this value-added tax thing? It actually belongs to the Ministry of Finance. But I believe that the problem is one of communication. And you being a communication expert, take it over and see what you can do with it. So over an 18-month period between July 1997 and December 1998, I led a team of communication professionals with President then John Mahama as my deputy to convince Ghanaians about the merits and the value of VAT, value-added tax. And when value-added tax was eventually reintroduced in December 1998, people were actually rushing to register who were not even qualified to register. We had to tell them, no, you are a kiosk owner or you are a watch seller. VAT doesn't apply to you, because they've begun to appreciate the positive aspects of the VAT to the point where nobody demonstrated. Now, it is that same skill set, that same knowledge that I have about branding, about marketing, about communications, which has taken me to the biggest and most reputable institutions around the world, which I'm bringing to the NDC to convert a defeat in 2016 into a victory in 2020 by rebranding the party, rebranding our messages, rebranding our communications, and making NDC a more attractive party than it was in 2016. There are not many people who have those skill sets, and people can tell you whatever they want, but they should show you their track record. And I can tell you, if you have time, the track record is there.
We will get to the track record, but a few more questions around the 2016 campaign, which is important for me. Do you think that former President Mahama trusted the wrong people during that campaign?
Well, it's up to him to really come out and speak at length on such matters if he wishes to do so. I wouldn't want to personalize it in terms of who was trusted and who was not trusted. At the end of the day, he has taken responsibility for the loss as the leader of the party and the presidential candidate at the time. One of the party executives, Kofi Adams, has also gone around accepting responsibility for the failure of the party to win. And I think they will be the right people if you wish to find out who they trusted and who they did not trust. But I don't really know who was trusted. As I said, I was not even invited to meetings. I don't know who was giving money to do what. I don't know who was giving what assignment. I can't make a comment on it.
After the 2016 elections, we've heard of unity walks, unity and whatnot.
I'm talking about unity talks now. I've been proposing unity talks.
You want to go beyond the walking?
Yeah, after the unity walks, we must now have unity talks. Why?
Why do unity talks?
Because when an election takes place, not just in Ghana, but anywhere in the world, those who win may be enjoying euphoria, well, big word for enjoying themselves. And those who lose may be licking their wounds and be very angry. And sometimes, if you don't manage that process very well, in a branch or in a constituency, you find that those who've won sometimes don't even want to relate to those who've lost. And those who've lost may also have this attitude that will not work with those who have won, either because of the way they won or for whatever personal reasons. So I've recommended that the party should take great interest in healing the wounds at all levels of the party between those who have lost and those who have won, and encourage all to work together, because once you've lost an election, you've accepted it, and there are new executives in your branch or your constituency or in your region, then they are your new leaders and you must work with them. Not everybody tends to feel that way, and I have given the example of when I contested in the 2006 flag bearership race, and I lost, and I lost along with Adianan and Alhaji Mahama Idrisu. From that day till today, the three of us and the winning candidate, Professor John Ibanstata Mills, never sat down even once to discuss any practical collaboration. So much as we may have still won the 2008 election, we may have won it better, or we could have been even more effective if that kind of conversation had taken place. And I don't want other losing candidates and other winning candidates to miss the opportunity of the kind of unity and collaboration that we need. So I'm presenting myself as a unifier by proposing such unity talks.
You don't think it will be hard presenting yourself as a unifier on the back of your Team B comments at the time? I know you've explained that it was misunderstood.
This 9 years ago. If you want to keep talking about it, you can keep talking about it as long as you want.
But you say it was misunderstood.
It was under a different government.
NDC supporters still say you did say that. They have not got the fact that you denied.
I was quoting. That's up to them. People can keep whatever they want to keep in their minds.
These are the people you need, Mr. Spio-Garbrah. These
and
are the NDC members you need.
Are they TB members? Did they acknowledge themselves to be TB members? This was a radio discussion program that I quoted in an article, and I've apologized in Parliament and apologized in so many places. But if people want to keep referring to it as you are doing, they may.
You think it's a river
that is not what, of course, we've crossed it long ago. This is not what is before us in the 2020 election. There's no Team B, Team C, or Team A in a 2020 election. It is about NDC moving forward in unity with one common purpose and one common objective. That's why I've sung songs about that.
Okay.
I hope you've heard some of the songs I've sung.
No, you can sing a few if you want to.
Oh, you know the Nanado Adadayan song?
No.
Well.
Drop us the first
Nanado Adada mi o Bawumia Adadayen MPP Adayen Edian and Troa Yeba Betuo. Simple song.
Oh, okay.
Or MPP Edian Awehua Yeba Betuo.
All right, so it looks like Dr. Spio-Garbrah has turned songwriter as well as a politician. Face to Face will return and we'll discuss the MPP and what he makes of their almost 2 years in administration.
Wherever the weekend sporting action happened, we will bring it to you here on Scorecard. Every goal, every dunk, every punch, the winning strides, and the winning volleys.
Come international media, he said, look, wait, sit and wait. Let me have a meal with my people. And I think that's the same cool, it's the same organization he brings to the field every time I've seen him play. He looks to me like somebody who's played over 50 caps already. Okay. But this guy has barely played over 25 caps for the national team.
All of the weekend's action in one place. Scorecard. Every Sunday at 8 p.m. prompt on Citi TV.
Every Thursday night on Citi TV, you're welcome to join women from different backgrounds and opinions as they weigh in on your relationship issues. Watch Sister Sister as the ladies get real with issues about love, marriage, betrayal, sex, dating, trust, finances, and more.
Sometimes some of the guys are like, oh no, they want to wait before they get married.
So there are little quick response.
Oh, I'm saying, hold on, ladies. What if she does, or they kiss and all of that,
and still nothing?
That's it.
If he really wants you like that,
so it's like, oh.
Join Jessica and her sisters for Citi TV's all-women talk show, Sister Sister, every Thursday at 7 p.m. Also, live on 97.3 Citi FM.
Welcome back to Face, and my guest is Dr. Spio-Garbrah, former communications minister, former education minister. He's held so many roles, former national vice chairperson of the NDC. You've done a lot for the party, but I want us to talk about the MPP now, the party that is in government. And you were trades and industry minister for a while. What do you make of 1D, 1F?
Well, the idea of establishing as many factories in Ghana as possible is a good idea. Whether you call it 1D, 1F or factories for the people or any number of slogans or titles you can use, fine. NDC created many factories in Ghana. But the fact is that they were not state-owned factories, other than the Commander Sugar Factory. They were factories that were being built by individuals and who were supported by the National Board for Small-Scale Industries, which is a government agency, the Rural Enterprises Program, which is also a state-supported agency with funding from the African Development Bank and the Food and Agriculture Organization, the IFAD, International Fund for Agricultural Development of the United Nations, and then also the Export-Import Bank, which used to be the Export Development and Agricultural Investment Fund. Through these agencies, NDC supported hundreds of industries. And so we could easily have said that we supported 500 or 600 industries, far more than one industry for one district. But as I said, if in order to make districts feel a certain sense of ownership of a factory, or to give the impression that factories will be evenly distributed around the country, a party comes up with a one district, one factory concept, and if they can implement it, and they can create jobs, help to process our raw materials, export some of them, improve the value chain of various industries, I will not be the one to condemn the effort. But the point is that having come up with that slogan, to the best of my knowledge, they've probably not been able to establish 5 factories yet.
The president is inaugurating one.
Fantastic. They should keep doing it. And the difference, though, as we find out, is that there's no state, or very little state equity in any of these projects. So these are just individual persons' own entrepreneurial efforts, which are being cloaked in some national flag and national colors.
But people are buying into this.
No, they voted for them already. I don't know what do you mean by people are buying into it. Are they buying the products from the factories? Most of the factories haven't started producing anything that we've seen. So I don't know what people are buying into. The people bought into the concept and voted for the NPP. But whether they are buying into the NPP's inability to effectively roll out the factories, I don't know how you buy into that.
Do you see a difficulty?
They're having difficulty in rolling them out. The first year they did very poorly. And I said that if they had given the assignment to the Ministry of Trade and Industry, where I was, and to its current Minister, Alan Chamatim, who is a good friend of mine, and who I know could do a good job, he would have done a better job than giving it to a certain ministry, wherever it went. I think where this Madam Howard Kumson was, those people who came up with the 800,000 website and 2 million CDs to prepare a budget, and just simply were totally confused and didn't know what they were doing. And until late last year, people who went to the One District One Factory office in Laboni came back and said they couldn't find even policy documents and strategy documents or whatever was implied by it. In a recent statement, I think the senior minister's main differential as to why the One District One Factory is different from anything else is that government will be absorbing 50% of the interest rate for companies who borrow under the One District One Factory. The first time I heard that was what really this was all about, because it was not clear from the beginning whether it was government designing the factories, whether it was the government promoting the factories, whether it was the government as equity shareholders in the factories, whether government will be part of management of the factories. It wasn't really clear. It's still not very clear, but at least one thing I've heard is government intends to subsidize the interest rates for the factories. So let's see how they do it, and let's make sure that the factories produce goods and services for Ghanaians.
And speaking about industry, Commander Sugar Factory, do you take responsibility for its current state? Last we did a report which said that Akweteshi sellers were now the main clientele of the farmers who had grown the sugarcane. This was something that you are at the forefront of, $35 million of taxpayers' money.
What has happened to the factory in the last 18 months when I have not been Minister of Trade and Industry? We handed over. I don't know what has happened with Citi TV or Citi FM. And maybe I should say, maybe you are new to it, but I hope you were present in Commander when more than 15 television stations and radio stations and media houses came to cover the inauguration of the factory and the launch of the factory, when they videotaped sugarcane being crushed through all the processes of the factory, molasses showing up in one part of the plant, and the sugar going on to be refined into crystal sugar packaged in containers.
Where were these packages of sugar?
All that happened in Commander. They were sold by the company to whoever wanted to buy them.
Minister, you didn't know?
I'm not the buyer and seller of sugar.
That's
no,
35
that's not what a Minister of Trade is supposed to do. No, I'm saying the Minister of Trade and Industry is responsible for setting up policies, is supposed to supervising regulations, is, if required in this case, negotiate with the Ministry of Finance and the Indian government for release of funds for industrial purposes. He is not a chief executive officer of a factory. He is not the one who procures the sugarcane and looks for buyers for the sugar that has been produced. So you can hang whatever you want on any minister you wish, but I will not hang it even on the current minister, that who are the buyers of the sugar in the factory. But I will hang on the government, I'll hang on the ministry, the fact that we handed over to them 100% functioning sugarcane processing plant with the latest technology that the Indians could provide, and the Indians are among the most advanced in sugar production, with over 500 sugarcane factories in that country. They even graduate people with BSc sugar production, MSc sugar engineering, etc. So they know a lot about that business, and that's why they were the ones to provide the funds to the government of Ghana. I believe there's still been a subsequent negotiation by this government for the 25 million additional funding for the agronomy part, where cultivars or seedlings of sugarcane were to be planted over many acres, multiplied to outgrowers, so that the factory can be well fed with its own sugarcane, as well as sugarcane that could be bought from interested sugar growers. So We performed everything that had to be performed. But when you pass a baton to another person in a relay race, and that person stands there or falls down or gets tripped by others in the race, you don't blame the person who passed the baton on to the other.
So far as you are concerned,
we passed the baton on.
Passed on
a very good
baton. Commander Sugar
I ran a very good race.
Responsible for it.
Hold me responsible if you want, but the facts won't bear you out.
Okay.
The media were there and they covered the factory producing sugarcane, and the factory had the latest technology and equipment. You haven't heard this government claim that the factory had the wrong equipment. I don't think so. I don't think you've heard any. I haven't heard specific complaints from this government about anything that was wrong with the factory, other than it did not have enough factory-owned sugarcane farmland to, as it were, procure from itself, and it has to buy it in the open market in competition with or against Akpetesi distilleries. That's the only thing that I guess could have been done differently.
You must find the whole planting for foods and job interesting, because I was going through your campaign message 2006,
yeah,
and you had something similar.
Absolutely.
I hope you're not going to take credit for that.
It's up to anybody who wants to do research on this matter to look through my 2006 campaign material, where I said that if I won the NDC flag bearership and if I became president of Ghana, that in 2009, that year would be the year of food production and jobs. Well, it seems as if somebody read that brochure and may have attempted to give it to the MPP to also convert it into one of their slogans.
You must have been fascinated by how it's going.
If they claim they invented it themselves, then it will be that, as they say, great minds may think alike. Well, the Minister of Agriculture has been making some pronouncements about this year having a bumper harvest in maize. I don't know which other crops we might have a bumper harvest in, whether it will be also in cassava, in yams and plantains and tomatoes and all of that. So yes, if we can have a lot of food at affordable prices, why should anybody be unhappy with that? I'll be happy with it, no matter which government of the day there is. I'm a patriot, I'm a nationalist. I'm interested in Ghana and its progress, not necessarily in political parties and individual politicians. I'm interested in what is good for Ghana. So I really want MPP to do a good job for Ghana, but if they don't do a good job, and many of the things they are doing are not good, whether it's the allegations of corruption or things happening in the Flagstaff House, $20,000 to see the president, or $100,000 to sit by him, or $5 million to get a contract, according to Nyantikshi, etc. Any of those things, if they're happening, are not good for Ghana. And I'm not one of those who support it. And if they continue along those lines, then NDC will want to get them to go and take a seat. And for us to get back into the game and play the game better than they seem willing and able to play.
In order to be able to play that game, you have to first win your party's nomination. Do you feel that you have enough of a base? There are those who say Spio-Garbrah is arrogant. Are you arrogant?
No, it depends on when somebody says that. The next question I'll ask you to ask them is, they should give you an example of that arrogance. You see, people who say somebody else is arrogant, ask them, are they willing to go and work in a church after being a minister, after working in the World Bank, after being an ambassador? Go and be an administrator of a church, and maybe they don't know what a church administrator does. You make sure that chairs are arranged for people to come and worship. You make sure the choir has instruments that they can play. You make sure that the toilets and the bathrooms of the church are clean. You make sure that the parking area has enough space for people to park their cars. Very mundane things. You make sure the pastors get their appointment letters and their salaries on time. There are not many people who claim that somebody else is arrogant, who may be able and willing to do that kind of work. I did it. After being a minister, after working at the World Bank, after the Development Bank, I've been an ambassador to the United States. So you can either accuse somebody of whatever you want, or check out from their backgrounds whether their actions are really tally with what you may be suggesting. But you are talking about 2020 and what it will take to get NDC there. So when you branded the NDC, there's another song that you may want to listen to. That's about the NDC. Because Juwaka has died. He's, I think, about to be buried soon, and we need of course. I mean, I'm a Western region man as well. He was a Western region man. The best comes from the West, and so we enjoy the songs. But the song goes Dana se, Dana se, Da NDC ase, Dana se, da NDC ase efri se onimi yo na nimputu jumaso edoso da na ase da NDC ase. So these are the rebranding songs. You must now begin to put the good things NDC did in the minds of the people to wash away the negatives that they may be thinking about it.
So these are the songs you'll be
Nobody is producing them. I'm producing the songs. I'll be teaching people as we go around, our delegates. Right now, if you go to most of our delegate meetings of branch executives and constituency executives, they usually would have started the meeting with hey Joe, people say Bodo, hey Zoo, they say Yeza, MFA, they say Mia. If you ask most Ghanaians what do those things mean, most Ghanaians don't know the meaning, and most NDC people cannot also give you a meaning. So I'm bringing them slogans that have meaning. So if you go to NDC meetings today, you hear MPP, 1 term. Akufo-Addo, 1 term. NDC, we are coming back. NDC, we are coming back.
Should
That's a slogan I introduced.
Then, campaign strategist, campaign consultant, rather than running for president.
If you are a leader of any organization, you must be your own campaign strategist. You have other campaign strategists around you, but if you don't understand the strategy they are developing for you, how are you going to say this is a good strategy and this is a bad strategy? So it's good, if I hear you correctly, to admit that I may have some campaign strategic skill sets, because I was director of communications for the Tamils campaign team. And when people ran away from the battlefield in the year 2000, first round, I was seen and known to be probably the only person going around with him from radio station to radio station, from radio station to radio station in the second round of the 2000 election. So I've been in the battlefield. I've been a director of communications at party headquarters from 2001 to 2003, when the previous then press secretary Vincent Assisi abandoned the party and went off with 2 4-wheel drives, and Professor Mills said go and hold the fort at the NDC party headquarters while he went to Canada to do a 1-year fellowship. I also was in charge of Cookie Hill, where President Atam Mills had his campaign headquarters at the time while he was away, working closely with now departed colleague Pakwese Mr. Arthur. I've been a vice chairman of the party, as you've said. I've been a chairman of the party's publicity committee as far back as in 1996, when I was ambassador to the United States. President Rawlings, as popular as he was, even he felt things were not going very well with the party's publicity. I was flown all the way down into Ghana while I was still ambassador to the United States, and asked to take charge of the party's publicity. And we did a good job, alongside what President Rawlings himself was doing, and eventually when he selected President Mills as well, to run the 1996 campaign of the NDC, which President Rawlings won. So I've been very much, in the trenches with the foot soldiers and the rank and file of the party and the grassroots, and they know me. After being a Minister of State, I became a constituency secretary in the central region. When I went to one region once just to visit them, and they were talking and talking and talking and talking, nobody was taking notes. And I said, well, isn't there a secretary to take notes here? They said, no. The secretary has resigned or doesn't come to meetings anymore. I said, why? They said, well, we've lost the election and he's no longer interested. So I asked them, isn't anybody here who can take notes? Because it's good for us to record the minutes of the meetings. They said, well, this guy gave an excuse, that guy gave an excuse, somebody else gave an excuse. So after thinking for a little while, I said, look, I'm happy today to take minutes of your meetings for you. And in fact, if you'd like me to be the secretary to this constituency today, then vote me in right now and I accept that position.
And you took the job.
And I took the job. So people arrogant, so and so. Let them be constituency secretaries, constituency organizer after being a minister of state. I want somebody to give me such an example.
You've thrown your hat into the race, and we've had the former NHIA boss through also submit his letter of intent. We've heard Professor Joshua Alabi also through in there. What makes you so confident that you are the person who is right for the NDC? These are all formidable candidates.
Every one of them will go to the delegates and present themselves to them. It's just like you attending an interview to be somebody. You can do the job well. I believe I can do the job of President of Ghana very well, and I have been privileged also to be told by no less than 5 previous supervisors, both here in Ghana and even in international organizations, about what they thought was my capacity for this job. So, as modest as I can be, I have also, by God's own eternal celestial decisions, been well prepared. As I started my life, as I may have suggested, in the advertising industry here in Ghana, moved to moved to the African Development Bank to be head of global communications. I spoke on behalf of all of Africa at a very young age, relatively young age, in my mid-30s. I was talking in Korea, talking in Japan, talking in Scotland, talking in France and Germany about Africa's development. And speaking on behalf of the whole bank, I could explain everything going on in that bank to any media house at any time. Then, of course, President Rawlings then invited me to become ambassador to the United States. And so again, according to foreign service officers, they know me as the youngest ever ambassador to the United States, 40 years old, representing Ghana to the Clinton administration at the time. At that time, nobody from the United States had ever visited, no head of state from the United States had visited Ghana in some 30-something years, and no Ghanaian president had visited the United States in more than 30 years. Within a year of my arriving in London, arriving in the United States, we had an invitation to President Rawlings to visit the White House. He came there in March 1995, helped to cement a relationship between Ghana and the most powerful economy, the most powerful military in the world, which still works well for the country. By October 1995, when President Rawlings was now coming to speak for the first time at the United Nations, I could have sat quite silently in Washington, which is a different location, and allowed my colleague, the ambassador to the United States, United Nations, to handle that. But I said that why don't I come up with a proposal to give President Rawlings and a Ghanaian delegation the opportunity to see the rest of the United States. So against all odds, because the foreign ministry wrote back to say there's no budget for this proposed idea, so we can't have it.